The Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario began its job action today. This after the province's public high school teachers walked off the job in 3 school districts. Joining us now for the latest in the disputes, Janet McDougall. She is chair of the Peel District School Board and trustee for Mississauga Wards 1 and 7. And Alison Jones, Queen's Park reporter for the Canadian Press. And we welcome both of you, I think for the first time, to our program. Nice to have you both here. Okay, secondary students out since April 20th in Durham and Rainbow District. Peel since last week. You're Peel. Yes, so what's the problem here? What are the main issues being discussed?
Well, the negotiation process changed dramatically.
From what to what?
Well, from the old way to the new way, if I could put it that way. But what they did was, well, the last negotiation process was legislated. This time they passed new legislation that talked about a 2-tiered system.
You're talking about Queen's Park now. New legislation in place.
Queen's Park.
Which allows for some province-wide bargaining and some local bargaining.
That's correct. We call it 2-tiered.
Okay.
So all the monetary issues are with the central table, the provincial table. All the non-monetary issues are with the local table.
That's you. Like what?
That's us. They would be management right issues, they would be teacher assessments, health and safety, those kinds of things that are more operational kinds of issues, rather than at the central table we have class size, salaries, benefits, supervision, prep time, all of the things that cost money.
And next to the City of Toronto, yours is the biggest board in the province, right?
We are.
So this is a big deal.
It is a big deal. We have 42,000 students that are not able to go to school right now. So, so the problem here is that we cannot get a local deal. And I was very involved in the negotiations leading up to the strike. I was there for 4 days and nights trying to get a deal. I felt that we could have got a deal, but the central table is prohibiting that, or everybody wants to see what's happening at the central table before they finalize the local table.
So this 2-tier thing, which we'll talk about more in a second, is proving to be a bit of a problem.
Dysfunctional.
Dysfunctional, okay. Based on your conversations with union leaders, what are you hearing are the issues that they are most concerned about?
Well, they say that it is not about money. They will swear up and down this is not about wages, that they understand the fiscal situation that the province is in. They say this is more about working conditions for teachers, about professional judgment. They say the boards and the government are trying to make incursions into the teachers' professional judgment, trying to dictate how they spend their prep time. There's some issues around teacher assessments. They're trying to hammer out exactly how those are done, when those are done, the stipulations for them. So all of those, as Janet said, in classroom issues at the local level. Now,
Alison, in my years at Queen's Park, whenever somebody says it's not about money, it's about money. But, you know, there may be a first. So when they say to you it's not about money, is it persuasive?
Well, you know, the government certainly seems to think that it is at least partly about money. That's what we've heard from the Premier, from the Education Minister. They've both said that they knew this round of bargaining would be tough because, you know, the province is facing a $10.9 billion deficit. They're bargaining in what they call a net zero context. So they've said to not just the teachers, but a lot of major public sector bargaining that's happening right now, that any agreements they reach are going to be net zero. So any sort of wage increases, any minor wage increases would have to be offset in other ways.
So you want to give these guys a raise, you got to take money away from these folks over here.
Or balancing it, sort of, you know, taking benefits away, that type of thing.
Gotcha. Let's follow up on this 2-tier system then right now, which you just called dysfunctional a second ago. This is Kathleen Wynne, former education minister, now Premier's contribution to making the whole system work better. What's not working?
Well, in my opinion, having been at the local level, I think it's actually all about the central table, all about the province, all about the provincial OSSTF, all about OPSBA, who is the Ontario Public School Boards Association that is representing all school boards in Ontario, and about the province, because they have the money. We have no, local school boards have no revenue source except the provincial government, except the ministry. And so, in my opinion, I think the central table, the provincial table, with all of those people who are meeting, should have settled first. because then local boards, and there's only 3 of us that have been targeted so far, local boards can fit themselves in to that framework, and I believe we could have got a deal, I wouldn't say simply, but quickly.
Let me get your take on that, Allison, because the notion, right, philosophically, you guys deal with the money, we'll deal with the local issues. I mean, on the face of it, that makes some sense. Why isn't it working?
You know, it's funny, I think on this score, I think most parties involved probably would agree with Janet's assessment that it's going to be hard to get these local deals before there's a central agreement. Even Liz Sandals, the education minister, has said as much, because really, you know, what is bigger than money and class sizes? And these local deals, the people at the local tables seem to be hesitant to really hammer out these local deals before the overarching central agreement is reached. I don't think we're anywhere close to that from the sounds of it. You know, they've been bargaining supposedly since, I think, August, but really the first 4 or some odd months were just spent figuring out what would be at the local table and what would be at the central table. So, you know, the point that we find ourselves at now, I don't think this is going to resolve anytime soon.
That's worth remembering what you just said. The teachers have been working without a contract since September 1st of last year. So they have, would it fair to say, Madam Chair, that they have demonstrated considerable goodwill to work through the school year without a contract on the hope that a solution would be found to everybody's satisfaction at the end of the day?
It might be fair. It's not unique. Having been involved in this for a number of years, it's not unique that teachers would go 6, 8, 9 months without a contract. The problem here is just so unfortunate, in my opinion. I think that teachers and students are caught in this dilemma, and I think they're being used.
Have you talked to the Premier about this?
I've talked to the minister about this.
You've talked to Minister Sandals about this?
Yes, Minister Sandals, to her credit, speaks with boards on a weekly basis and has been very open to conversation.
And you've told her you think the current system is dysfunctional and will not bring a deal?
Yes.
And has she told you we're open to changing it, or tough, suck it up?
She hasn't told me that they're open to changing it, but I noticed last week that she was admitting that the central table is critical to local deals. And so the local strikes are simply trying to put pressure on the central table to come to a deal.
Now, one more thing on this local issues business, and I don't know if this is true, but it's something I heard. Might have read it in Canadian Press. Some school boards don't want to give supply teachers keys to the staff room, and that's one of the things that's being argued about at the local table. Is that accurate?
I'm not going to get into specifics with you, if you don't mind. We don't bargain specifics in public. What I can tell you is, as a very experienced trustee and chair of a public school board, I have been involved in many negotiations, both teachers and CUPEs. I don't believe there's anything at the local table that justifies a strike right now.
The issues just are not that
I don't believe they're
dramatic.
there. So if we'd had a central agreement that is all the monetary, that we knew then what we had and what we didn't have, then we could all have worked, I think, far more cooperatively.
You want to talk about this, teachers getting, I mean, you heard the same thing, right?
That, I believe Sam Hammond, the president of the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario, said that at his press conference on Friday, as he listed a number of issues that they were having at the table. And one of them, he said, was that they wanted to get classroom keys for occasional teachers so that they could have them in the event of a lockdown.
And the boards have said no so far.
We haven't heard. I mean, as you heard from Janet, the board, the government side, has been hesitant to discuss specifics. You know, the old refrain, we won't bargain in the media. So it sort of puts us at a bit of a disadvantage when we're trying to figure out exactly what is going on at the bargaining table, when one side is more than willing to discuss what they think the issues are, and the government, the board side, you know, says, you know, sorry, we can't really discuss those issues in the media. So we sort of have to figure out, read between the lines a little to figure out what's going on.
Let's put what's happening right now into some broader context. The previous Premier of Ontario, Dalton McGuinty, several years ago brings in Bill 115, This is a bill where he says, I need certain savings from the education sector, and if I don't get it, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to bring the legislative hammer down and legislate savings. And that's what happens. And teachers got furious, and they withdrew extracurricular activities and so on. Everybody lived through this. Everybody remembers this. Kathleen Wynne wins the Liberal leadership, becomes Premier, pledging a new spirit of cooperation with the teacher unions, the school boards, everybody. We're all going to sing Kumbaya together. It seemed like, Madam Chair, this was resolved and much calmer as a result. So what's happened here?
Well, as I said, I mean, from a local standpoint, I can only speak for Peel District School Board, and we have always come to agreement with our employees.
Never had a strike.
Never had a strike except for those 2 weeks of days of action, I think it was called, against the Harris government.
Oh yeah, 20 years ago.
Yeah, 20 years ago. I've been a trustee for 27. Never had a strike with any of our employees. Very proud of that. We have a great relationship. We have huge respect for our teachers and our support staff, all the people that work within Peel. I think the union and the federations would agree with me. I don't think I'm sugarcoating that at all. And this is so disappointing because I think this new, although maybe it was well intended, and I'm sure it was, but the new legislation around how to bargain, as I said to you, is dysfunctional, and we just can't work this way.
Can you make a comment on how this is affecting the Liberal, if I can put it this way, brand across Ontario, given that these were the folks who for the past decade have been saying to us, no strikes on our watch, we've brought peace to education, etc.
Yeah, I mean, certainly that's been their brand, you know, since 2003 when the Liberals took power. Really, the only major education strife we've seen was that business with Bill 115. The impact on the schools was limited to, as you mentioned, the extracurriculars and some rotating one-day strikes. So with the exception of that, there has been pretty much labor peace on the teachers' front since the Liberals came into power. Kathleen Wynne, former education minister, people thought things would go differently. Now we've got, you know, strikes at 3 high school boards. The central talks with the high school teachers are stalled. The elementary teachers are on work to rule. And then on the other hand, she's got all of these problems surrounding the sex ed curriculum plaguing her. It's not happy times in the education ministry right now.
Okay, so let's finish up on this. Where are things at right now in terms of who you're talking to or not talking to, or what's going on?
Well, I think locally, both the Federation and the Board of Trustees is more than willing to go back to the table. In fact, I thought we had a date for this week, but I understand that our provincial mediators have a conflict. But we will definitely get dates to go back to the table.
So the school board and the secondary teachers are going to be negotiating again sometime this week?
We will go back locally, yes, it's my understanding. I mean, I don't think it's been confirmed yet, but it is certainly from the board's perspective our understanding. We want to get back talking. I don't think we'll solve anything if we aren't talking. But nothing has changed. So I really believe we need that central table to either create the framework, create confidence, do something to help local boards. And remember, we've been targeted. 3 boards targeted. This isn't a province-wide strike. Provincial OSSTF targeted 3 boards for no good reason. No good reason.
Well, like the auto workers, they target one, they target one plant. You make your target, then you hope that you get a deal, and it's a pattern for everybody else. That's kind of the model.
I know, but I guess I resent the fact that it's in Peel.
Okay, last thing, Allison, to you, and that is, I mean, one of the reasons a lot of people are worried about this is that at a certain point, a student's year is in jeopardy. When are we at that point?
Well, an arm of the Labor Relations Board is the body that makes that decision. So if a board, say Durham, which has been out the longest since April 20th, wants that determination to be made, they have to make an application to this Education Relations Commission. And then this body sits down and meets whenever there is such an application, and then they look at all the facts. They see how long the kids have been out, how close it is to the end of the school year. As you mentioned, we're getting kind of close to that now, and then they make a determination. We were asking the education minister about this maybe a week and a half ago. She said from everything she's seen about past decisions of the commission, we're not there yet, but of course we'll have to wait for an application from the Durham board before that ball gets rolling.
That's the answer to so much in politics. We'll wait and see. Janet McDougall, Chair of the Peel District School Board, thank you for being here today. Allison Jones, Queen's Park reporter for the Canadian Press, great to have you alongside as well.
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit supporttvo.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.